No,
surprise us there?
I just wanted to know if I could. That's all.
Of course you can.
We're recording this for later, but not right now. Okay, we're back in 15 seconds. Voiceover's about to start.
Okay.
It is 8:09. Newstalk Sauga 960 Raw. Mike Richards. As Wednesdays, it's always packed, and we look forward to it every week, where we normally, during Arrows Up, would talk to one of the players. As you know, we've got to know them pretty well, and most of them at some point have taken a shot at Mark Winokur. Usually, some comment inferring something. I don't know. They have to realize the power that Mark Winokur has, so I don't know if that was in their best interest. But now the general manager, the vice president, joins us here this morning. Mark, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, and it hasn't gone unnoticed that joining the people taking shots are the two of you. So
yes, that is true.
Here I am, guys. Step to me.
Well, look, the one thing that is a real shame, and for those that follow the show, those that listen to the players that join us on the Wednesdays, you've got one tremendous group of individuals. These guys are amongst, and this is, as honest we can be. Look, we've talked to, over the years, every athlete in every league and every sport. I don't know if I've enjoyed meeting the players from this team. As I said, locally here, we do the Mississauga Steelheads. The young kids are fantastic. But these, there's a mixture of young guys on your team and, men. These are guys who have wives and families. They come from all over the world, and yet to a man, they do your organization so proud. And I think that's also a reflection of yourself and Bill, the individuals you picked on this team. And so getting to know them, you're just dying to see them play. For those who haven't had a chance to go and see the Arrows play, you saw them on the road every single week. They only lost one game in 6 weeks, and then the season gets taken away. Mark, that's got to be very, very, very difficult to know what an outstanding group you have, but then to not get a chance for the local fans, for people here in Toronto. We never got a chance, for those who haven't seen them before, to go down and see them play.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it was a very, very difficult phone call to make on March the 18th to the guys, but that it's done. I mean, there's nothing we can do to change that. Dwelling on that just adds to the stress of the situation. We're moving ahead. We hope to play some exhibition games this fall. We will be playing MLR rugby, next year, and there's just, I mean, sure, it's disappointing, but there's nothing, no emotion is going to change what's happened, and now we just have to look forward. And I think, to their credit, the guys have been real good about doing that.
Now, for you, in terms of the team makeup, you lose a year, which of course is just a season. Really, it's an asterisk. But for those that play the game itself, do you lose anybody? Is there any individual, or does it affect the team from the roster standpoint if you lose? Well, indeed, losing this year.
Well, as they say, Father Time is undefeated. So, there's always going to be an evolution of your squad, and we know that. And, I feel badly for a couple of guys who may or may not have played their last game. But in terms of overall, we've got 34 guys. We had 34 guys on last year's roster. I don't expect that to change by more than 5 or 6. And when you look at the list of people who have contacted me about playing for us next year, we could probably field three quality sides if that was a thing. So, listen, I mean, that's part of the game, and we appreciate the effort that some of the older guys made and stuck with us. I mean, some of them are original Ontario Blues, which goes back to 2009, and we'll miss them, but they'll still be part of our lives and part of the history of the Arrows, forever.
Yeah, and Mark, with everything, and it's cautiously optimistic. There seems to be some of the restrictions slowly lifting. Some professional leagues are starting to allow players back to practice facilities. Now, I know it's not like Major League Rugby is going to restart the season all of a sudden, because it is over. But I know we were talking a couple months ago that there could be a possibility, and we've got to stress possibility, that there could be some exhibition games in July, August. Is that still something on your radar, that if everything falls the way we want as a society, is that still a possibility that we could see some sort of rugby action this summer?
Yeah, it definitely is. We've booked facilities in July and in August and in October, and I'm cautiously optimistic as you are. I mean, obviously, with any situation, there's what you read and what you hear in the media, and then there's the inside story. And bigger sports leagues than ours are privy to some information because they've got billions of dollars at stake. So following in their kind of slipstream, we're pretty optimistic about playing, if not in the summer, more likely in the fall, and certainly come January. And I think we have to operate that way.
Well, Mark, I want to follow up on something that you said that I think is really important and I think very evident during these Arrows Up segments. And that is, you'd mentioned that you could probably field 3 teams. And I just sort of, for those listening, clarify, when you have a league like this, which is still in its infancy compared to the other leagues, I think the one thing that's really hard to create is a place that, and other teams have used this, is to be a safe place, a place that you want to come, a place that you want to play. And that means, when we talk to Thomas de la Vega, when we talk to Tommy, I mean, he stayed here. He didn't go back to South America. And when you start creating an atmosphere, which you and Bill have clearly done, you become the place that people want to play. You become the center where, if you're available to play professional rugby in this continent, they're looking at Toronto. And that is no easy task, my friend. I think that you have done a very good job. And I think it's really important for the people to understand that people eventually, as this gets bigger, and I still think this is a blueprint that looks similar to Major League Soccer as it has grown through North America, I think the same thing's going to happen. If you create that kind of atmosphere where you're the team people want to play, boy, you got a pretty bright future ahead of you. And I just want to say that I think that's really important what you said.
Well, that's the goal. I mean, there's no question that's the goal. It's been the goal since even when we had the Ontario Blues and the guys weren't paying for money. We said, look, we've got to walk this tightrope. It's got to be successful and serious, but it's got to be fun because we ain't paying these guys, and they're driving from London and Brantford and Ottawa every Monday night to train. So we have to make it a fun place, and that culture's kind of carried on. And what you say is true. I mean, a lot of the recruiting that's being done, I've got 2 or 3 capped Argentina players and a couple of Australians and a couple of Kiwis who we didn't recruit. They heard from, I was talking to so-and-so and he said it's awesome. And that's your best marketing right there. It's, the rugby community is a small thing. And when you get guys in the clubhouse going out to their friends overseas and saying, hey, mate, come play here with me. This is awesome. I just kind of sit back and try to avoid the icebergs. That's all.
Which you have been getting a lot of too, with people contacting you. When you look ahead to 2021, I know we're still far away, and we rightfully should still be in the 2020 season. But what sort of preps are you guys doing now that you're 9 months out of preparing for that season, 8 months out, somewhere around there? Is there anything you can do right now outside of state the course?
Yeah, no, we're doing lots. I mean, we're trying to get the roster shaped up as quickly as possible so that we have, time to install things, extra time, may as well use it. We're working with facilities. That's a big piece of what we do, where we train, where we play. We're locking in broadcast deals. I mean, we're doing all the prep stuff that we would normally do. And the goal is to kind of get it done by August. So maybe I can take a day off, because that hasn't happened since the start. So, there's a lot to do. And the wire is buzzing with all the other league GMs. There's 2 expansion teams coming in, so we got to get them ramped up. And, it's been a blessing, because even though I'm stuck here like the rest of us, kept pretty busy, I would say.
Now, when you say expansion, what cities are we talking about?
Dallas and Los Angeles.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, Dallas has been in for a while, and they're in the process of executing now. And Los Angeles was admitted about a year ago. They'll be making announcements on branding and logo and stuff pretty shortly, I would think. There was a dispersal draft of the Colorado Raptors the other night, and those players were drafted by the 2 expansion teams, and that announcement will come out this week too about who's going where. So things are happening, and we don't want to shoot all our bullets early on and then have people forget about us. But there's stuff going on every day.
I hope Dallas realize Gil Gronis is taken.
Yeah. Some of the name choices have been pretty interesting, and I'm hoping we do better. But my confidence level is not that high.
Curiosity too. I know you're Canada's team and will continue to be that way, but has there ever been any talk of expansion into the Canadian West Coast, considering that it is a rugby hotbed, very similar to what we see here in Southern Ontario, and almost forming that cross-Canada rivalry with another Canadian team might be kind of cool down the way.
Great question. I'm super glad you asked it, because I get asked that all the time. And I think the first thing you got to understand is it's not the way it works is the league doesn't look and go, oh, there's a city, let's give them a bunch of money and do a bunch of work and give them a team. There's no give. It's not the U.S. who are our partners, that's not a socialist society. So, what needs to happen is somebody needs to emerge in a market with a bunch of money and a bunch of elbow grease to put the work in and, get an infrastructure and get a stadium. Now, it's quite possibly easier in BC than a lot of places because they do have an infrastructure of knowledgeable rugby people and players. But until somebody comes along with a bunch of money and the will to do the groundwork, it ain't going to happen. And when you look at the list of U.S. markets that still sit open, and then you sit at these board of governors meetings, and they're talking about, places that there are holes. I mean, there's Chicago, there's Miami, there's Hawaii, there's all these places that don't have teams. And then you mention, I remember when we mentioned Halifax, somebody mentioned Halifax, and half the people were like, what is that? I don't know what it is. So, people have heard of Vancouver for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not top of the list, and the only way it would get to be top of the list is if somebody opened the bank account and put some feet on the ground. So.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I think of out in Victoria, what rugby means to that community. It's not unlike sometimes when we deal with people when they talk about the lacrosse, the National Lacrosse League. I mean, if you look at the Eastern Seaboard, where field lacrosse, you're almost a god. You play at Syracuse, you play that field lacrosse, you know what that's like. You're a rock star, you're a god. But that doesn't mean when it comes to the National Lacrosse League that someone's going to sit there and say, yeah, well, I'll put in I don't know how many millions, get a stadium, get a deal of players. It's easier, even though it's popular. As you said, you still need someone to put up the dough. It'd be awesome to see that grow. But as I said, the way that it seems to be, at least in the very short period of time that Dave and I have been a part of this, you can see where, as you talked about the seeds and getting this thing growing, it certainly is going the right direction. And when you start throwing in names like Dallas, you start throwing in the Los Angeles of the world, including what comes with that, which is marketing. You want to put products on television. Well, if you don't have big enough markets, just like the CFL, where people say, out west, they go, we don't need Toronto. Yeah, you know what? You do, because we don't have Toronto.
Yeah, how's that worked out?
Yeah, no one's going to buy that advertising. So the fact that it is moving that way, it's very exciting. But it's also the same thing where I always say to people, this isn't the NFL. This isn't Major League Baseball, the NBA. If you're in this in a capacity like you are, like Bill is, ownership, being the president, in these early years, you do this because you love it, not because you're buying a new yacht. And I think when you see people involved in this, that's what I think is very exciting. It looks like in most markets, at least to my thinking, you seem like you have all the right people.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken us a while to know all our partners, and we don't know the new people in Dallas or LA. Although somebody in LA is a guy I used to coach with, because that's how big the rugby world is. So I'll be talking to him shortly. But yeah, I think so, and I think that, to be honest, people made a bit of a stir about Colorado leaving, but the less I say about that, the better. I don't think anybody lost any sleep about not seeing those guys anymore. Let's put it that way.
Right. Weren't they the Raptors?
They were the Raptors.
They were the Raptors. They picked up that name, post the Toronto Raptors. But listen, there's only so many names unless you want to go with stuff like Rugby, whatever your city is, or named after a pretend drink.
A beverage, yeah. Although, if someone wants to call themselves the Rice-Keys, I swear to God that may rival my favorite team here in Toronto. Just so you know.
Nothing would surprise me.
Hey, Mark, thanks so much for joining us here this morning. It's great to catch up with you. We haven't seen you since we started this in studio, but you certainly have us as fans. And all you have to do is listen to these guys that come on the air, and they come from everywhere. Some of them are more local than others, and some of them, come from across the sea. But boy, just a bunch of winners, and that's what it takes to be successful. And I know for everybody who listens to these segments, and we'll see this today, we can hardly wait till we see the guys on the pitch, because it's boy, I'll tell you, you got a couple fans right here. I can tell you that.
Great, I appreciate it very much, guys. We do as a team. I know the guys always get off and call me and say, "Oh, that was so much fun," and we loved it. And next week we'll get you somebody interesting.
Oh, please, come on.
I apologize for this, and I did notice, even though I said, "Hey, I'm right here," no shots were taken. So thanks for that, guys, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, that's coming after. As soon as you hang up, hey, you take care, Mark. Great job, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Be safe. Be safe.
You too. Thanks.
That is the general manager and vice president of your Toronto Arrows, and once again, a tremendous Arrows Up segment that we have fallen in love with. Really, with as I said, I think the choices that Dave and I have made, and I'll be honest, Dave was the